I think we're live. Hello, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Good, good. So let's just start off. Who are you?
Yeah, I'm Matt Hargrave. I'm a solution architect for Red Hat. Prior to coming to Red Hat, I was a system engineer, so had a lot of hands-on experience. I was a customer for like 10 years before I joined the company, so a lot of hands-on experience that I'm bringing.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Yes, and hi, I'm JJ. I'm a developer advocate for the IBM Cloud. And Matt, what are we going to work on today?
we're gonna do some playing with some molecule today to work on testing our Ansible roles.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So just a nice little side conversation, real quick. Matt and I actually met through answering questions on Reddit, of all places, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And turns out we have the same kind of passions, and we started talking. We figured we could give this shot a stream, or give this stream a shot, and see kind of where it goes. So we're going to start from the very beginning with Molecule. We're going to start with a completely blank slate. Matt has claimed that he's done this before. So we'll see where it goes from there. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you nailed it.
Awesome. All right, so let me go ahead and switch over my screen share. Oops. If I can actually click buttons here. There we go. They really are. They really, truly are. Okay, so Matt, how about you just start us off by telling me in depth what is Molecule?
Yeah. So Molecule is a tool that allows you to test and use the test-driven development method to develop Ansible roles. So as you start building your Ansible and getting better at your playbooks, you'll start off with probably doing a few tasks in a playbook, and that goes so far. But now you want to create reusable, more extensible playbooks that you can use against different platforms potentially. And so develop what's called an Ansible role. And so that's a collection of resources, tasks, and variables that you use a directory structure that's pre-mapped out, and you build that role. And so as you're building that, you want a way to be able to test those out. And so Molecule gives you a platform to be able to do that. So it'll spin up a resource, an instance of some sort, and apply that role, and then allows you to run tests against that. And so if you're not familiar with test-driven development, that's where you write tests for a feature against a function that you're trying to build. And so you build your test, you run your test, it fails because it doesn't exist. And then you write your code to make sure that it then does pass the test so that your outcome is as expected.
Okay. So obviously this sounds extremely powerful and useful because it gives me a safety blanket of my playbook and my role. But let's take a quick step back real quick. And for me, I still don't fully understand where the line is for me writing one playbook with a bunch of tasks inside of it to install a web server and, I don't know, pull down a Git repo and put a bunch of PHP in there. I don't know, whatever. That and where a role starts. Where is that line?
Boy, that's a hard question. I'm not sure there's really a defined line, but it lets you break it apart into pieces that are easily digestible. It's also for when you want to start reusing that code against other platforms or potentially modify the task slightly, and it allows you to do that easily and modularly. So as soon as you want to start using your series of tasks, probably in several different methods, that's kind of when you want to start breaking into a role.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it with one task really, or 100 tasks. There's no real, I guess, defined line. I'm not sure, I don't think there's an official answer there.
No, that's good. It's good. Like I was curious myself because I've been struggling with it myself. With some of the playbooks I've been creating, I've realized that I am repeating some code over and over and over again in it. And I was trying to figure out where my next step is. And it sounds like I really do need to just start building roles. So just to make sure this is completely clear, and I'm grokking this. So if we were like, okay, I want to start installing a web server on a bunch of different entities, I would create like a web server role that would install like HTTPD on a Red Hat box, Apache 2 on a Debian box, and HTTPD on that other one for like OpenBSD. Is that kind of where we're going for it?
Absolutely. And so because those package names are going to be different, the package system might be different, and Ansible can handle a lot of those differences, but you're going to need to feed it different variables for that package name and have slightly different tasks to handle those different platforms. And so that allows you to do that without having to rewrite that same code over and over and over again. It allows you to do that. It also lets you stack different roles on top of each other. So maybe you have a common role of all of your configurations and your standards that you would want to apply to all of your systems. And then you can have a web server role and then a database server role for your database. So your complete application can be built in those sections using your roles, and you can use them modularly.
Modular. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Nice. Okay. So I think we're going to start here. Hopefully with just the getting started guide and kind of walk through what we're doing, and then we're going to kind of walk and talk about it. And our goal is to go farther than the getting started guide, because if you're just watching this in the future or just right now, you could do this at home. But the goal is to see a little bit deeper. So we're going to build this very basic getting started guide, probably install a couple web servers or something like that, then write some tests against it, and then maybe try to build something on top of that and see where we are at the end of this. Okay, so I am not a Python developer. That is very simply said. I've tried to program in Python multiple times in my life. For whatever reason, honestly, I'm just not a very good developer. I can read code, I can do all that, but ask me to write something from the ground up, I have no idea where to start. But I have Ansible installed on this box, but I also it looks like I need to install using pip molecule here. Is this where I want to create a virtual environment so it's all safe from all my other system stuff?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Yep. Pretty much anything. I think my opinion is any modern day Python development. Yeah, always create. I love virtual environments. It lets me install all kinds of random packages and I can do whatever I want, but I don't have to worry about potentially putting in packages that would hurt my host system. So I love virtual environments.
So, and just to make sure that I'm doing this right, I typed virtual env space venv. That's like a standard as venv. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people use. I've seen it done with dot files, so dot venv, but there's, I don't know if there's a right way to do it, but I think the documentation has you do that exact. So cool. So now you're in your virtual environment.
So now, because we're in our virtual environment, now I'm safe and I can mess around with stuff. And as you said, I don't mess with my system stuff. I need to install Ansible, right? I'd imagine that would be the first thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. Pip install Ansible. There we go.
Yeah. So pip's going to work just like yum. So it's going to go grab the package from their repository and install it.
Just thinking about it. Still thinking about it. Real time, man. That's good stuff.
You didn't sacrifice your chickens before the stream gods.
It's the story of my life, man. Story of my life. There we go. Oh, so it just clicked on me. So when I started building some universal tasks or playbooks that I was repeating, that's when I want to push it up into the galaxy, so I can just be like, I need to just pull down this thing to do what I need to, because I'm just calling. God, that makes so much more sense now. I can't believe for whatever reason, it just never sank in. It really didn't.
Yeah. And so those are called collections, actually.
Oh, what's the difference between a collection and then a roll?
Oh boy. I don't know if I know that off the top of my head. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I think it's basically the same thing. It's just the way it's handled by pushing it in the galaxy.
Okay. All right. It's fine. All right. Wow, this is taking a lot longer than I was expecting.
Or a collection can actually consist of multiple roles and various playbooks. So it's kind of a collection of roles and playbooks all together to complete the task.
All right. Feel like I'm compiling Ruby from Nokogiri now.
Boy,
I'm compiling Nokogiri.
I feel like it goes faster than this.
It says it's installed. It just doesn't give me my prompt back yet.
It's going.
There we go. That looks better, right?
Yeah. It's always a good idea to upgrade your pip with pip. So.
Okay. So I'll do that in a little bit.
Yeah,
now we need to install Molecule with Docker. So where do I find all the different drivers for Molecule?
So it comes with Docker, and that's the default one. But there's several drivers, and you can find them there in with pip. But I kind of Googled around a little bit to say, hey, is there a driver for this? So I searched a driver and the name of what I'm trying to do. There's OpenStack. There's AWS for building EC2 instances. There's Vagrant. There's Podman. So being a Red Hat person, I love Podman over Docker. But so you kind of find them in some people have made third-party ones, and it's just an extension of the Molecule tool and lets you build out instances with whatever with that driver.
You like the role name I just created there?
Great, yeah. I have to go first, man.
Hey, I hear I'm a gentleman. My guest always goes first, right? Isn't that how it goes? Something like that.
That's what I read.
Okay, so I went ahead and I created a new role, just like this instruction said, and I used the driver for Docker. Does it create like a folder for me or something?
Yeah, so we got a directory. And when you go into this directory, you're going to see several other files and directories. And what it actually uses under the hood is it actually uses the Galaxy tool to develop a new role. So it'll automatically create all of your file structure. And this is what I was talking about with your collection of resources. So all of these are Ansible resources that are divided into directories, and that's just easily sorted and finding it.
Okay.
And so the core of this here, you'll see that Molecule directory, and that's something that's not default or part of Ansible. That is inside of Molecule. And so you have the default there. And then you'll have a couple different files that do a few different things. Your main one, obviously, being your Molecule YAML file. And that's kind of the base configuration of your Molecule setup.
And it looks like it pulls a image from Docker Hub, and then it has a provisioner and a verifier.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, obviously a provisioner would be the provisioner that is like goes off and does the thing. How does the verifier work with Ansible? Is it just like run it again to get a no-op, or what is that?
Not exactly. So you'll write playbooks that are your tests, and it'll run those other playbooks against your system, and that'll be kind of it'll verify, and those are your actual tests. Originally, Molecule came with what was called Test Infra, which is another Python tool that uses PyTest to do infrastructure testing. And now with this newer version, I believe it started with Molecule version 2, where they switched over to Ansible. I might be wrong on that, but now they use Ansible itself to check Ansible. And so it's kind of personal preference. If you've built already a lot of test infra tools, it might be nice. Sometimes I like writing my tests in a separate language because it makes me break out of the thought process. So I'll write it in, using test infra as pure Python, writing my tests. And then I write my Ansible playbooks so that I don't get those things confused and I'm testing in something a little bit different. So I break away from that mindset. And so that will be, if you look at the verify YAML inside that molecule default directory.
Default verify.
Yeah, so that'll actually contain your tests that you perform against the instance. And so for this, it just asserts a true. And if you're not familiar with the assert, you can do assert statements in Ansible, and if it's true, it will return an OK pass, or if it's returns a false, it'll return an error.
I didn't know that existed. So does that mean Ansible? Is it a built-in system?
Yes.
Built-in?
Yeah. So yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, if you look up for assert, and it'll be just like in the task.
Is it? Oh, so wow. Can you run arbitrary scripts against this, or is it specific?
So you'd run the script outside as a shell or raw command inside of Ansible and collect the output into a variable. Mm-hmm. And then you would check the variable to see if it's the output that you desired.
Wow.
And maybe there's a way to, if there is a way to do it directly, I don't know. But typically, I think best practice is you're going to run that as a task. So you like a shell task, collect the output, compare it.
Well, we're going to have some fun with this one. All right, cool.
So coming to mind already, what I would do is maybe if you're checking for a package to be installed, mm-hmm. you would look for your packages with your facts. So you use gathering facts, and then you'd make sure that that package was inside of the package mm-hmm. list inside of your facts. So
okay. So yeah, okay. What package do we look for?
So we could start writing this. And so I guess, if you're going to do against CentOS, so if you're installing Nginx or HTTPD, so you could say mm-hmm. that, and then put it in quotes, and then single tick, and you're going to type the name of the package you're looking for.
Wait, single tick?
Well, quotes first. You open it in quotes, so the whole thing's going to be in a quote. And then a single tick for the pack that you're going to surround the package name for, just to make sure we escape any. I don't think in this case it would technically matter. Yep. And then you're going to say in Ansible_facts.packages. And that is a fact that it gathers a lot of details about the system. I'm sorry, facts.packages. And that's just going to be a list of packages installed. And then you're in the quote. And then we're going to need to do a task that actually gathers facts for packages. So, and you probably want to get rid of, we can get rid of that example one as well. So you'll make a task that's called gather facts or package facts, I guess. And then the task would simply be package_facts : and that's going to run the package facts gathering process and gather all the packages and the facts that go along with them. So you'll get like versioning and stuff like that with it if you want to get more in depth and checking your version. But this should form a step that would essentially check for.
One question: is it plural or singular here?
Oh, it is plural. Yeah, facts.
1 second.
Catch.
All right. So then I'll go ahead and write this, and I'll quit out. And we've kind of gone through these guys, which is good.
So we can go, if you want to go back to the molecule YAML file, I think there's some interesting things that we can kind of talk about what's going to happen as we run this for the first time, because we can do that. So if you start off dependency Galaxy, so that would allow you to pull down other dependencies. If you have other roles or Galaxy collections that you use inside of your role, then it would allow you to connect. Yes.
So Galaxy is the public hosted collection place where we put stuff. Can you run Galaxy internally behind a firewall?
Red Hat does have a product with Ansible automation platform called Private Automation Hub that allows you to run your own Galaxy instance inside of your network. I'm not sure I assume there is an open source equivalent upstream of that. I don't know what that's called.
That's fine. So because in my mind, if I'm starting to build code to start doing infrastructure as code, blah, 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 there's probably some stuff I want to keep secret and or like not out on Galaxy. So how would I share that?
Yes, absolutely. And you want to create your own private repos, a Galaxy equivalent on inside of your network or your cloud in your environment that's not public. And you can do that with Ansible 2.10. You can now pull collections out of Git repos actually. So you can use like Git or something like that. And that's just a brand new feature. Yes, with 2.10.
Awesome. Okay, sorry. Continue on.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so we have the driver, right? We're using Docker. So what that means is we're going to connect to Docker, and that driver is just tells Molecule how to connect to Docker to build your instance. So then you have this really cool part, platforms. And platforms can be one or more instances that it's going to build with that Docker driver. So in this case, it's just called instance. But you could rename instance to be, you could do RHEL 8, CentOS 8, CentOS 7, Ubuntu, whatever. And then you're going to point to that image that it's going to use. So it's going to spin up that image, and then it's going to apply our playbook to it, and then run so it's going to use that provisioner, which is the next piece, which is using Ansible. So it's actually going to use Ansible. Ansible is going to talk to Docker to do that. And then it goes to the verifier, which will run our verify YAML to go against that instance.
Nice.
So this allows us to run our playbook against multiple platforms rather than having to go and check. So if you're doing this manually, you might write your playbook. You're like, all right, let me download it to my Ubuntu box to run it. Let me download it to my CentOS box to run it. I'm testing it. That gets obnoxious. So this will spin up containers. So they're just test instances. And then once it runs those tests, it'll destroy them. You're done.
Does it work parallel? Does it spin them both up at the same time? Or
parallel? There are options that you have to configure on the command line to do parallel testing. Otherwise, it'll run it in a series. Kind of. So it does it using Ansible. So each task will be done in a series.
Okay. Not a big deal. It's I got to ask the questions, right?
Yeah. No, and there is a feature that allows you to enable parallel pieces. Okay. So now I think, let's see. I'm just looking through this this piece, so you can see where it has you create. So we created our piece. Yeah, so this is going to actually spin up the Docker container here.
Oh, so it has to, I don't have these containers. Yeah, I don't have these containers. It's got to pull them all down, right?
Yep, so it's going to pull it down. Yep, so it's going to take a minute. So the next step it's going to have you do is the molecule converge. And I think we should skip this step real quick. And I'll tell you why. So converge is going to actually apply our role. Now, we haven't written anything yet. So I think it's better that we actually we run the verify. So if we do a molecule verify, it's going to run our verify tasks against the container, and they should fail. And that's good. And that's our first step of test-driven development is we determine what we want to the outcome, and we write a test for that outcome. Then we write the code to complete that outcome.
All right. So molecule verify?
Yes. And there's molecule test, and that actually runs it through the entire series. It'll build the new container. It'll converge the container. It'll verify the container. There's also linting that you can apply, and then it destroys the container. So it's easy to. Cool. So yeah, neither container has the HTTPD package installed. So we see those assertions fails. Nice.
Okay. So then that means being that we're doing this inside of the molecule, and then it does all the stuff there. Do we put our task to install HTTPD in the molecule directory, or do we do it in the main tasks directory?
So now we're going to actually build our actual role. So this is the meat of our role.
Okay. So we would do tasks.
So because it's a role, we don't have to put that task because that's already implied here.
Okay.
So it kind of puts it together. So it's kind of all those directories. It pieces it all together, all those segments of what would normally be a single thing, and it assembles those together. And so you can just start with, you will need a name to start with.
Oh, yep, thank you.
Yep.
Install HTTPD, package name. I used to know this off the top of my head.
Yeah, no problem. You'll do state, and then you got one tab too many on that. Yeah. Oh, you got the auto.
Yeah. So we want to install the earliest one of HTTPD and the package.
You will need to add let's add a dash to name.
Dash to name. Okay.
I'm sorry, the title of the task itself. There you go. Space, and then add a tab to there, and then the other. There we go. So cool. And I believe that should do it.
Mm-hmm. So now we go back to molecule task to run it again, correct?
Yeah. So you can do a molecule converge, and it'll make sure that the containers are built, which are already built. We haven't destroyed them yet.
Oh, yep, right there. Already created.
Yep. So it knows they're already there. Sometimes you make major changes to those. You'll probably want to destroy them. But for right now, this does. So now it's running our playbook right here. So install HTTPD. And under the covers, it's using yum or DNF or the CentOS 8 box. Pulling down the HTTP package, installing it just like you would. You're just not seeing it. But that's what's happening under the covers here, just like if you were to run this playbook natively.
Awesome. So this is feeling a lot like what I used to use in my previous life with some of the other software I've done. And now that I've understood where my biggest stumbling block with using Molecule was I was overwhelmed by the directory structure. Because it brought all these things out and I didn't know where anything went. And I would just throw my hands up and throw it all into one main.yaml under a playbook directory, right? I wouldn't do it. I'm really, really bad at this stuff, but it got what I needed done. Now that I understand where Molecule comes into play, where I can actually put the tasks and how the verifier works, I have a whole slew of these playbooks that I've written that I can turn into roles, which are just going to make my life so much better. Thank you for this, Matt. Seriously, you've gotten me over a hump here.
And I'm fairly new to the tool itself. I discovered it not that long ago and was super excited to be able to do this and test it against a bunch of different platforms without having to spin up a bunch of VMs or go to AWS and spin them up and test them manually. It lets you do this automatically. Okay, cool. So it ran our playbook and we see that it changed, and that's what we expected. So now if we run the molecule verify again, we should see now those tests, if we wrote it right, should pass. So we gathered our facts, or we are gathering our facts.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice. So being that we were gathering these facts here and we wrote that package facts there, is that redundant?
No. So the first one is Ansible, your default Ansible facts. So Ansible, unless you tell it not to, will run this gathered facts, and that's system facts. Package facts is a separate module that we call to gather the package facts. It will not gather those package facts by default.
Okay. Okay. So now you were talking about the test command a minute ago. If I run this now, will it delete everything or will it run it again? How does that work?
So in this case, because it sees those, and you can go ahead and run it, and I talk about it while it's running because it'll take a minute.
Okay.
So what it's going to do here, it's going to destroy our instances because it says, hey, I've already got these instances. I'm going to destroy them because it wants to start from scratch to know that everything works from the ground up. Because we start messing and changing a lot of things, you don't know for sure if your whole test is accurate. So at first it destroyed it. Now it's rebuilding our containers again. And then it's going to run the playbook. And it runs the playbook, and we can see this in our molecule configuration where it actually calls our role that we just built. And so now it's running that role once again with these brand new. So it's spun up brand new containers. They're fresh off the press. And it's going to do just like we did before.
Nice. So I noticed when we were looking at the containers, and when I copied it and just changed it from CentOS 8 to CentOS 7, that seemed pretty straightforward. They weren't the actual upstream containers. Is there is there a story behind that? Like we're not using just library CentOS 8 or I guess Rail 8 or whatever. Is there specific containers we should use with Molecule?
I guess containers that you trust that you want to use. So if you have your own private containers you're using, so you can point to a specific repository. So I think by default, you're using Docker, so it's going to use whatever Docker looks at first, which is going to be Docker Hub. If you're using Podman, it would actually look at the Red Hat repositories and then fall over to Docker Hub. For me, if I'm doing more official enterprise work, I'm probably going to look at using the UBI containers directly from Red Hat, which are going to be the official RHEL container. If you're doing
talk to me about UBI real quick, because I don't fully grasp it. I really don't.
So that is a container image that we built that is kind of primarily if you're building applications to run on either a RHEL environment or ship it as a container image, we give that as an official Red Hat container that is RHEL under the hood or a RHEL container to be able to run as an official image that you can get from us. And hey, this went through our QA process and it's been verified and it's trusted because it's coming from a reliable source. And it's great for building, if you want to build a product and then ship it as a container image, then you have a nice official support. There's support that you can get for it on our various platforms. So if you're running OpenShift, for example, and you invest in that, and you're building your applications for your business on that, if you build on UBI, you're going to get, which stands for Universal Base Image, by the way, base that you're able to get support all the way down to the container level, because Red Hat knows what was done to create those images. Where if you use your own Alpine, or if you go get build your own random image, it makes it more difficult to support that because we don't really know what was done in that image. I mean, we can go look, but with UBI, it's an official image coming from Red Hat.
So out of because I'm trying to be a good citizen with IBM and Red Hat, I chose to use the Fedora containers for some projects that I'm working on, just because I wanted to try to get something, closer to the newer releases. Where does UBI fit in the life cycle? So, because it turns out the things I needed weren't actually bleeding edge by any standard, could I just rip out the Fedora part, put UBI, and in theory it should just work, or am I overly ambitious here?
I think there's a real possibility, obviously, so it depends on your use case and what you're doing. But anything, if you were able to take it over to RHEL and run it, then it would work. So if you're just doing a yum install HTTPD, for example, that's going to work on Fedora. It's going to work on RHEL no matter where you run that command. So it's probably, if you're doing simple things like that and you're not needing bleeding edge, there is a very good chance that you could switch over with no to maybe minimal modification to your Docker file.
Nice. Yeah, it turns out I'm just like, I literally install kubectl and I run kubectl in it, right? Like it's not crazy by any standard.
So potentially, I know some of the, Fedora has a lot more packages and community packages. So you might run into, if you're installing a package, you might need to add a repo or grab that RPM. It's not going to be the RHEL official repos. Those are some issues to run into. Cool. It looks like we're done.
Yeah, it did exactly what we were hoping for. And it looks like it went green, which is always good. And then it cleaned up that for itself. So if I do Docker PS, I got nothing running.
Yeah. Nice. And then molecule list will also list out what's running. Okay.
Nice.
So those are created false. Yes. So these are instances that it knows about, but they're not running. They're not converged. So you could converge them. And so what's really cool is if you want to go and take a look at those instances, you can run a molecule converge, it'll apply it. And then if you do a molecule login, it'll actually log in and give you a prompt shell into the container itself. And so you can go explore it and look around and make sure it is as desired if you haven't written the tests to
nice. Well, let's take a look. Hang on one second. Maybe. I have to admit, we've gotten a lot farther, a lot faster than I was expecting. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's not super hard. But if you're going into it without knowing, it can be daunting. But yeah, like you were saying, you got all of a sudden you've got all these directories. Where do I put stuff? What's this do?
Yeah. I'm excited to write our next test. That isn't a
yeah, we get a little bit more crazy with it.
A little bit more crazy, yeah. The idea of being able to write a test that calls out, but runs a bash script that does something, and then we turn it into a variable and then assert that is the state we want it to be in. I have a feeling that'll be like the cherry on the top of me on finally understanding how to put all this together, because that's what I'll end up doing, right? Like I'll want that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And then you can build this into a CI/CD pipeline where it's actually running Molecule and doing these tests, and then even calling external tests against it if you want to. And I think that the documentation kind of goes more into that. So yeah, so Molecule login. Oh yeah, you got to choose the host.
I was just curious to see what it would do if it would default.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I didn't test that out. So, oh,
you have to do -- host.
Yeah.
Oops. There we go.
Yeah, so you're in the container. You're as root. So if you were to run an RPM-QA HTTPD, you should see your. Or I'm sorry, you don't need that's the wrong flag. Just a HTTPD. See if I test my. There you go. So there's your package.
Nice.
And then, if you're looking for anything else, looking for files that you're meant to be created, checking configuration. It's always good to be able to manually go in and be like, if something does go wrong, you should be writing tests to make sure your output. So this really should be automated. But if something really goes wrong, you're like, what the heck went wrong? This lets you get in there and see the result of your playbook. Great for people if you're just learning Ansible. This lets you test all kinds of things and not having to spin up an extra VMs and a bunch of different flavors, distros.
Nice.
And some other cool things about Molecule is you can delegate how it does the connections into the instances. So you could delegate with SSH and already have systems spun up, or even WinRM if you want to go into Windows systems and test against those. So you can delegate the instance pieces to log into systems, run your Ansible playbooks, and test against them. If you did drivers even.
Yeah, that's this delegated right here.
Yeah. So if you delegated it, you can actually use a SSH point WinRM. So if you had a AIX box, for example, that you wanted to go against, maybe you don't have. Obviously, we can't spin up Docker images of AIX yet. I don't think IBM's.
No, I don't think they're letting that one go. I don't think they're letting that one go anytime soon.
But yeah, so you want to build a test against your AIX environment. Well, you could just SSH into a test system.
Nice. And then it runs the Ansible, in this case, the verifier, to verify what's going on. That's really slick, man. That's really slick.
It really extends out pretty far, and you can do some really neat things with it.
Nice. So we were looking at what was it? So the driver is how to talk to it. If I have a KVM instance on a remote machine that I can talk to remotely to spin something up, is there back to the Molecule driver? How would I find if that driver existed?
I think, oh boy. So I don't know if there's a better way than this. I would Google Molecule driver KVM. I know there's Vagrant and there's some other ones. I believe there is a libvirt one.
Nice.
That would do that. That's how I would find it. I'm sure. Hopefully, maybe somebody can email you and let you know there's a better way to find a list of drivers.
It's good enough for me, man. Googling is always an acceptable answer.
Yeah, that's how I do 99% of my job.
Let's see here. All right, so going back to the getting started guide, and then we've done this. We ran our test. We did that. Now we want to create. We want to do Molecule Because we're going to be good citizens, destroy to clean everything up. And then we want to go back into our molecule directory, cd molecule default. So what is that default directory exactly? Is that just...
So those are scenarios. And in this case, we're using the driver Docker and we have our instances. And so you can create different scenarios to test against. So if you wanted to use that libvirt driver or Vagrant or EC2 instance, you can create another directory there that would be a scenario. So you could create, instead of doing different instances, you say, okay, this is my Ubuntu scenario. If I'm going against Ubuntu, this is my AX. So you can make those modifications because on the platforms, you can only it has to kind of match those drivers, as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
And so we can't do delegate those tasks to SSH and spin up a bunch of different container images all in the same scenario. So you need different scenarios for that. And so default's just the default scenario, the standard one. So you could create different directories that would match. You'd have these same files in there. You just modify them in the way you want. Or if you're testing differently.
Oh, it's under default. And then what we need to edit to create a new test is inside of verify. That was where I was stumbling. So name,
so I guess, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pulling a blank now. I don't actually know.
We could test to make sure we make so you want to make an index.html and make sure that looks correct?
Sure. Check for index.html. And then, oops. Then assert that.
So I think before we assert, we're probably going to need to run get the stats of a file.
Okay.
And so and that's going to be, if you use
file
stats or stat, I believe, is its own module.
That stats
should be just stat, I think. Boy, let me double stat module built in. I just no S, singular, stat.
Nope. What is this? Oh, that's nothing what we need. I'm not too sure.
Find it. Yeah, I see it here.
Search.
So if you search stat, nothing comes up?
Nope.
Because I found the page for it.
Oh, you want to send it to me in the chat real quick?
Yeah, I can do that. The built-in.
Right.
Of course, I guess we got
three systems of chat between.
Right. That's like, all right, which one do I put it
in? It's good. Yeah, this did not come up.
See, it's there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we need to.
So I think the best way to go about this is you're gonna get those, run this, and you're gonna save that to a return variable.
Okay. Is there an example of that? Or register right here?
Yep. Register. It's gonna be your variable name.
Ansible and Ansible.built-in. That's that path of var html index.html.
Perfect. You won't use the Ansible built-in, or do you now? That might have changed. I usually use stat.
Yeah, it's the example right here.
Yeah, no, that's there. Huh. And it might be, I think that's changed. I'm used to an older version of Ansible, I guess.
And then index stat, something like that.
Yeah, perfect. Or you can just do index file.
All right. And then we can do a name.
And so this is,
Assert
yeah.
that index file exists.
Perfect.
Exists. That's how you spell this. Assert that index file is.
Oh, assert's going to be, let's see, I believe that's going to be index file dot stat dot exists, or it might just be dot exists, but I think it's dot stat dot exists. I believe that will be set if it does indeed exist, and I don't think you'll need to put that in quotes.
Yeah, that's what it smells like. Stat exists. There we go. Stat exists. Sample true. Okay, let's give this a shot.
Awesome.
Oh, I didn't create the containers, so it failed on me instantly. So you got to do create first.
Yeah, Converge it'll do it. It'll actually create it. I guess Verify will not.
Yeah, right. Now we verify. What?
So yeah, so that's what we expected. We expected it to fail because
no,
not that.
Yeah, and it didn't get to the second test either.
Oh, we got to converge it. Sorry. So it is, yes. And there is a way of making it keep going and for Molecule to continue on with the tests. And I'm going to have to look at the documentation for that.
So we should be using Converge to kick everything off, Verify as the fast feedback loop, and then when we're ready to do soup to nuts, we do test, and test wipes everything clean, builds everything up, and wipes it clean again if it succeeds.
That is, yep, exactly. Okay. So yeah, so it failed on that first test, and there is an option. Well, see, I don't know how to. I know on test using the test infra Python module, it will continue. There's ways of making it continue on. I believe there's a way of doing it.
There we go. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yep. So couldn't register the variable name because it didn't. That file didn't exist. It's kind of redundant, I guess. But with the stat, we'll actually be able to check then permission, ownership, and permission with that. So now
it looks like this stat right here. All these options are available.
I can get all that information to check against.
Yeah.
So MD5 sums.
MIME type even.
Wow. Yeah. So you can really get down into the weeds with it.
Nice. All right. So in this case, we want to vim or vi tasks main.yaml. So we want to name, create an index.html. Because you're watching me.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't drive, because as soon as something's talking, I forget how to do everything.
All right, so file, there's like a trillion of these things. We can just do, wait, that's not the one I want. I don't want a template. I just want a simple like create file.
So yeah, no, you're there. So I think you'll need the path for where the file is.
I remember this being more.
That doesn't look like the right page at all.
No, it doesn't, does it? Built-in file, read file contents. That's not it. Manage files. Here we go.
Ah, that's right. Okay.
I was looking at it a minute ago. What is this thing? So read file it's the same command, right?
That's what. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know what. I think something's wonky with
with file. That one's with file.
Oh, with file. Oh, okay. So I can't see the whole URL header. But it uses okay, yeah. So but it's built. It's part of the built-in file, the file module.
Oh wow, that's confusing. That's really confusing.
I think that's why we couldn't find the stat, because the stat is inside that file module as well.
Got it. Got it. And I swear there's an example here of just like.
Yeah, that very top one there. Perfect.
Oh, yep. Oh, I could do Ansible built-in. I didn't know I had to do that now. I guess once we get.
I believe that's the new thing they're doing. I think they're breaking apart the modules, where some's going to be included in the base, and then there's going to be more add-ons.
I guess that makes sense if you have a collection from upstream from like Cisco or some shit like that. You know where that task is coming from, right?
Yeah.
And also you don't have to worry about name collisions now too, right? If there's a file from Cisco, you know Ansible built-in file does one thing one way, and then Cisco file does something else the other way. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Var www.html index.html. And we want an owner of HTTPD. Right? Is it HTTPD? I don't actually remember.
No, I believe it's going to be Apache.
Oops, that didn't work. Apache. And then our mode of 644, just because that's easy. But we need to put something. Oh, I guess we're not testing if anything's inside of it, right? We're just making sure that it's there. So we can do another converge. Yes.
Yes. Perfect.
I'm learning slow but surely. I'm learning.
Yeah. You're pretty much surpassed where I'm at. So.
Hey, sometimes you just got to kick the ball or kick the ball down the hill and it starts rolling or something like that. I don't know. Oh, can I pat
in absent?
Oh, so the directory doesn't exist. What?
No. What was your state? So back to the playbook. I believe
State.
you need a state is file. I thought it was defaulted.
File.
No, I'm sorry.
File. There it is.
File, but I thought that was by default. Maybe if it's empty, I think if you have, I believe it won't create it if you don't put the state in there by default. Oh, no, it says that's the default.
Yeah. Huh. Well, let's give that a shot just to see what happens. We're learning, right?
Absolutely. The worst part, I've done this like 100 times, but the pressure's on.
And because it's idempotent, we don't have to reinstall HTTPD or anything. Checks and says that it's there. Everything's good. Huh. So
let's take a look with our login. And
yeah.
You'll do -- host.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so that is indeed there.
Yeah. Changed false. File is absent. Cannot continue. Was that? How do you create a file? Well, this just changes the file, gives it, creates a symbol.
You might have to use copy or
touch. Looks like we need to use touch.
Oh, okay. Yes, that is. Okay. I'm sure that's all in that big bit of text under state. Probably explains all that.
And also, if we right, and if we were doing this in the real world too, we would probably be using a template or something here. We wouldn't just be trying to create a blank file.
Yeah, I think typically when I've done this, when I was playing with this earlier, I was using copy and actually copying the file from my role. So I had a flat file that I was just copying over. Yeah, that or a template or something. Yeah, you would never touch and play a blank file for this specific instance.
Yeah. All right, there we go.
Yes.
Just because I'm paranoid.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check with my eyes. HTML. There we go. And then it has the correct permissions and the usage. So now that we have our safety blanket of testing, we can do molecule verify. And if we had a bunch of these different systems or whatever, this would shoot out and go to all those different instances to make sure that it's in the state we want it to be in. Wonderful. Let's see. Invalid variable name and register.
I think our register might be incorrect. Okay. Or the playbook used to register that. Let's see here. So we do the stat. Path. Because I don't think it's getting to the assert part. That's just the checking the stat is not working.
Yeah, it drops out before that. That is true. Yes. I had a link of all of the things. I completely lost it. Where did it go?
Can you exit out to see that error message again?
Sure.
See if I can maybe. Oh, it might not like that variable. I wonder if it doesn't like that dash in the variable name. That might be an Ansible thing. You can't do dashes.
All right, let's try that again. Yeah, there you go. All right.
So yeah. So now we can expand on it, make sure we have our correct permissions as well.
Mm.
And ownership. Or if you want to go and try content, I guess how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Let's get some permissions going, and then we'll take we'll let's have it open it up and try to read the file with like hello world or something like that. But first, we need to assert that the file permissions are 6 or
0644 is what at least that's what we're doing today. So if you want to change it to be, say, 7,
5.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Set, is it equals?
So,
where was it? Did I lose it? I think I did. I did.
Oh, nope, you were just there.
Was I? This one?
The asserts, are you looking at for the assert?
Oh, I was looking for what the off the dot stat to get permissions.
Oh. I believe that's mode. Dot mode.
Dot mode. Not that I don't trust you. I just want to see it myself.
Yeah, no, yeah, never. I wouldn't trust me either.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Mode equals 0644, like that.
I'm going to make sure it's not equals to. I believe you're gonna have to have equal, 2 equals with the compare. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. And then we also want to, do you want to go ahead and create the test to see the hello world inside of it while we're here?
Yeah.
Hello world, or hello world inside of it. So is there a stat.read or something like that?
So we could read. There are ways of finding or placing strings inside of files. Line in file is a module that you could potentially use for that.
But for the assertion,
we could use the shell command to make it interesting and register that variable. Which might be fun just as a way to say, hey, here's how you'd run shell commands. And so, yeah, so you're going to say run or read file, I guess, maybe.
So in shell, would it be like cmd cat?
Nope, well, let me double check. I think you'd do from shell, you just do the command directly there. But since things have changed on us, let's make sure that's right. Yeah. All right. So yeah, you do it right directly from the shell attribute.
Okay.
Perfect. And then you are going to register a variable.
Is there like a?
Maybe dot standard out, std out.
Like that.
I believe so.
I think I'm catching on here.
Well, so this is tricky because you actually are going to be reading the lines. So you might need to look at it if it's in the lines, because your out's going to be your entire out. So if you want to like grep for that, if that's the entire contents of that file, that might make sense. But in this case,
like I don't imagine the one we would do. You do like a h1 tag hello world close and probably HTML in there also, right? Like in the real world.
Gonna have, you could do like a grep beforehand, but I think so, in the real world, if you're looking at specific lines, you might need to get a bit more tricky in looking for because there's also a standard out lines that'll separate the lines into segmented lists.
Like that? Lines?
Just lines. I'm sorry, the standard out and then underscore lines. Said that wrong.
And we would want to come back over here and do rep hello world, like that, right?
Oh, if you do that, yes. And so then your out would be, then you could just use the standard out, because your standard out should be hello world. Yeah. No underscore after standard.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So I believe that'll work.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we can use like the copy command and then put the file inside of the directory, the files directory. So here you'll see those files directory. Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah.
So then we can go back to tasks. Oops, tasks, main. We can go, we can actually change this one because we can just copy now, right?
Yeah. I believe most of it will need the source and destination. And I don't think you'll actually use the, in this case, you won't have the Ansible.built-in. I don't believe that's in the built-ins yet. Oh, let me make sure though. I'm probably wrong. Yeah, I am wrong. It is in the built-in. I was looking at the older. I'm looking at old documentation. That's my fault. So yeah, so you're gonna have, instead of your destination, your source, your owner, your group, and your mode, which we have. So you're perfect. Yeah. So your source there, that is relative to that files directory. So you won't use a slash at all, but so just like you have it is exactly there. So if you put it into a directory, say you put it into a www directory, because you're maybe having a config, you have config files in there. Well, so then you do www/index.html.
Got it.
Config / and it's all relative by default to the files directory.
Relative to the files directory. Okay, cool. I didn't actually know that. Thank you for that. Converge. So we want to converge again, right?
Yep, so
because
on our roll.
Yep. Okay. Now we can verify. We've made some changes. Okay. Oh man.
Cool. So we see here that
oh, 644.
We didn't fix our permissions. Yeah.
No, we didn't. So then tasks main. Let's do 6.
I forgot about that little detail.
I did too. I was like, this should work. Oh, it didn't work. So we'll converge again because we need to reapply all our changes. The power of this is really coming into clarity. Sure, let's go with that. The clarity of the power of molecule is really starting to hit home, and that's really exciting for me.
And so if you're writing this role and you've got RHEL and you got CentOS and you got Ubuntu and other, whatever flavor, SUSE, and you're writing this and you're spending all this time, and this lets you verify, yeah, you're going to be able to run this and go across all those all at once and say, okay, I know it works.
Sorry, what? Molecule login, host, CentOS 8, LS, L, bar,
Oh, this is, I see what. So that is indeed 655. The problem is our assertion is actually 644. Even though the name of it is 655.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. All right, so let's fix this the correct way.
Not sure why it didn't pass.
Yeah. So let's go back to tasks and main and turn this back to 644. All right. And then we can go back to molecule default verify. And that should be 644. Yeah, you're right. That should have passed. It doesn't mean like that.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'm wondering, there's some other things that we might need to do, but let's try that.
All right. Oh no, that's not it. Converge. Maybe. All right. And then verify. There we go.
Success. Yeah, the output, I guess, is a string, so.
That didn't work.
All right, so let's take a look. So our assertion is that okay.
So if we look in machine, cat, that's your grep, hello world, var, HTML, index. Oh, it's probably because it's white space, right?
Yeah. Well, if you do a grep, it should be, well, yeah, because it won't be exactly that. And I think, and this is kind of what I was talking about, is the way you look for it, because you want to build to your things like this you're going to run into. And so you could instead try to use maybe some regex. And so I believe you can do a dot find on it, actually. No, leave that standard out, actually. And then at the end of that, dot find. And then in parentheses, you'll be able to do hello world. And I believe that's going to return a count.
False.
I think it's a count, actually, of how many times it finds it.
So then we need to say this should equal 1?
Equals 1. I believe so.
All right, let's give that a shot. I'm along for the ride, man. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. Another thing we could do is try the some other regex things, line in file.
Nope, that worked.
Oh, it worked. Cool. So just out of curiosity, let's make sure our test fails. If you want to change that test to being goodbye world, maybe, to make sure that our test isn't just returning true and that we're no matter what.
That's a great point.
Yeah, with your testing, you always want to make sure your testing does fail when it's not accurate or before. That's why you write your tests first and run them to make sure they do indeed fail.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good mentality to have, sir. Very good.
It's hard. Nobody likes to do it because you're basically writing your code twice.
Sometimes thrice.
Yeah, for us, 6, 7 times.
Nope, there we go.
Yeah, so there you go.
Nice. Well, Matt, this is phenomenal. Like, one last test. So we'll do molecule. What is this mole command? Oh, it's a shorter version of molecule.
Learned that one today.
Let's run mole test one last time. See if everything works. And then, sir, I think we should take this as a win. And
great.
And wrap up here.
So yeah, and if you want to use this, with the different drivers, Vagrant is super awesome. So you can spin up different images. If you already have images you want to test against cloud images, because you're going to run into some issues when you're using containers. If you're testing things like firewall rules or systemd services, there are ways of doing it in a container, but you have to have running privileged containers, and it can get tricky. And so to avoid potential issues or different kernel settings, for example, are going to have issues in trying to test that in a container environment. And so that's where you're going to want a virtual machine instance to be able to really test against. But,
yeah, my nerd sixth sense is telling me, well, if I was just starting to write a role, I would try to do a lion's share of the framework, if you will. We're using containers because it's fast turnaround, get it going. And then as soon as I have to start messing with like open ports or make sure that if you do a get against something and it brings back a version number, that's when you start moving to a VM. So it's a little bit longer time, but you have that framework already built fast through this. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're just learning Ansible, a great way to start, hey, what does this do when I do it? And it gives you those platforms to see what that actually looks like when you run those playbooks. And then before you do a git commit to maybe your business, you've got a real nice fancy pipeline for all of your playbooks, and you submit it. And you don't want to look like an idiot by submitting a bad commit. So you can run this before you do git commit, and then you're like, all right, I know everything works.
Is there's this action of idempotence right here. Is it possible for you to run the playbook again to make sure nothing changes? Is that why it's there? Because I just noticed that.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Where do I see it?
That makes sense, because it should run and you have your changes, and it should run again, and there should be no changes. Everything should be okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's homework for the viewer. So let me flip back over here. Matt, what would you how first of all, Matt, did you have some fun?
That was super fun.
Yeah. Awesome. That means a lot. It really does. Is there anything you'd like to mention to our audience or the people who might be watching this in the future?
Man, so I've been doing this for a while, got a lot of hands-on experience. I think this is probably not JJ's first rodeo, but you can see that if you're learning something new, you're going to hit, bumps and hiccups, and just, and I'm learning new things, even on here live. Like, we'll read something like, oh, okay, I was doing this wrong. This changed, this updated. The open source community, I mean, look at Ansible, man, that thing, it's moving and changing. And so I'm seeing that stuff and learning it for the first time. Keep learning. It's super fun. Just, Google around, test it out. I think that's the best way to do it. Get your hands on the keyboard, test it out, and keep learning.
Nice. I like it. That's probably some of the best advice you can ever give any engineer. If you stop learning, you're not being an engineer anymore, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream here in a second. But if you want to say bye to everybody, you can say bye now.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.